One flanked immediately. Oh, yeah.
Hold down. You hold this.
I'm going to...
Bomb is mowed.
One enemy remaining.
You're right.
Who's last, no? Drop.
Really doesn't let you down, huh?
This default spot right here gets bombarded with utility like Viper mollies, shock darts, killjoy mollies, you name it. And it's very spammable. So since they don't have a sage wall to go across here, or maybe to go across this way, or even a harbor cove, they're gonna have a really hard time planting here. So what do they do instead? They are going to plant against the wall on nest here. And why do they plant here? Because it's a lot safer than the default spot over in this way, and they're protected by this unpenetrable wall essentially. So the only way that they can get killed from this spot is if someone is peeking from up here in nest and looks straight down. But luckily that's why Sam is here to kill anyone that might peek the killjoy in this awkward kind of position. You also notice that the Yoru is back sight spotting any enemies with his ult and can easily get out if he needs to. So right now this is the best plant position for the team and is probably the only reason why they end up winning this round. So the first clip we're going to take a look at is of Nats on Bind. Most of the time when you see a Viper playing on Bind, they'll typically be accompanied by a second controller, usually Brimstone. You really won't see Viper playing solo controller. It's kind of hard to keep her wall and her smoke up for an extended period of time, allowing the attackers to hit sight more easily. So that second controller is really going to fill in those gaps, which can allow both controllers to essentially refresh their smokes and make it really difficult for the attackers to push sight. So right away, you'll notice that Nats likes to start in U-Haul playing on A with his Jet and his Gecko. And this wall's kind of weird. It actually starts in U-Haul and goes all the way through the map, only cutting off Hookah and Garden.
That it's possible. When I play Valorant. You just have to do it in the right way.
All right, so Nats likes to place his orb kind of on the edge of this jump up box for short, and this really just encompasses the entire A short and the boxes if they jump up there. So this lineup is pretty forgiving. All you really have to do is put your crosshair in the middle of this like big wheel thing and just jump and throw at the top of your jump. So you notice he jumps, and at the height of his jump, he throws the orb and it lands on the box nice and easy.
One shot. Oh, no. It's me. Brim, I'm ready to go TP.
So the reason that Nats plays up close like this and jump peeks for info is for two reasons. The first is that it allows him to see if anyone's coming short quickly. And if they do, he's not necessarily worried about an attacker satcheling at him like with the raise. The reason he's comfortable doing this is because all he has to do to prevent that from happening is pop his orb and just molly in front of the orb. And if the raise does decide to satchel past his smoke, he has a Jet playing on truck that can easily help him win the fight there. The other reason that Nats is playing close up to the smoke and the jump up box here is because he can easily molly through the teleporter and land it right in this spot, helping this Brimstone win the fight at B short.
B.
Shower clear.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, for the rest of the round, I'm going to put on screen when Nats is looking at his crosshair and when he's looking at his minimap, just so you can get a better visual idea of when he's looking at each, so that you can understand how often he's actually looking at his minimap, even during the midst of a fight.
Wait for me. Reloading. Ready, I have fashion.
I can dash.
Spike planted.
Yeah, do it.
Reloading.
Both backside.
One enemy remaining.
Left.
Nice.
Oh, well played, Brim. Let's go.
So the first time he checks his minimap, you can kind of see it right here. He's looking up to the left there, but is right after his Jet dashed out and is starting to fight on site. The reason you want to look at your minimap in that situation is that Nats can't see what's going on back site with his Jet. So he needs to look at the minimap in order to see where the last two enemies are located. And that's why he checks the minimap really quickly, but also make sure that he's not looking at it for too long because he's exposed right now and they can easily peek back site and kill him in an instant because he's got 20 health. So this is the most interesting part that you might have noticed, is that Nats decides to look at the minimap right now. And he is just out in the open, completely exposed. But the reason he does this is because Gecko is taking first contact. And Gecko probably sees the Brim there. He starts fighting the Brim as Nats sees it on the minimap. And the Reyna is most likely backside as well.
One enemy.
So you'll see when Nats jumps up there, he pre-fires where the brim was, even though the brim got taken out, but he's ready to get in that fight and help the gecko immediately. And he makes sure that when he's fighting the Reyna, he has this nasty little head glitch here so that it makes it really difficult for the Reyna to even get a shot on him, and waits for his brimstone to wrap around and finish off the kill. And generally speaking, when you have a teammate that's in front of you taking first contact, you pretty much want to exclusively be looking at the mini-map so that you can trade them in an instant when they peek an angle. So next up, we have another Nats clip, this time on Icebox. You should probably get used to Nats clips by now because you'll be seeing a lot of him in this video.
I'm only default.
Living now.
So most of the time when Nats plays Icebox, he likes to retake from rafters here, as it gives him a few options to throw mollies on the default plant spot. So this first molly lineup that he throws is actually pretty wingable. You just have to kind of get past this line right here. And once you see these diagonal beams running across, you just want to aim a little bit above it and just run throw. Molly lands right on the default plant here and even gets under the rope as well.
Living now.
Can you be ready to shock their default? I will down, will down, will down. Oh, he's pushing.
So you heard Nat's call for the shock dart default there. So even if your Sova won't do that lineup with you, you can still molly the default from this spot as well. It's just a little bit closer up on the stairs, and it's another one that's pretty wingable. Let me show you. So what you want to do is come up on the stairs here, and you'll kind of see this faint line in the background, and you just want it to be in the middle of the opening here before you can see the top platform here. Just kind of like right in this spot. All you have to do is run throw, same idea, lands on default. Now this next part is where Nats lives up to his community given name, no access to sight.
Spike planted.
Drop low.
Wait,
Okay, Killjoy, we're gonna push. Enzo, you hold these two lines, okay?
I'm ready.
Do it now, do it now, do it now. Nice.
One enemy remaining.
Whoa!
I'm coming now.
You have ulti.
Yeah, I
We
need
need
to
to
go. Yeah.
Well,
Toxins going up. Toxin screen down. Ultimate is ready.
So Nats makes a pretty giga brain play right here and calls for a Sova to ult these two lines, covering all of back sight and all of front sight. And you did see in the clip that the Sova actually got 2 kills there. One was because of the pressure from the Killjoy pushing in front sight and seeing exactly where the jet was, but unfortunately dying. But it didn't matter because the Sova still got the ult off of that information on the minimap. So Sova's ult here was a great win condition, and Nats immediately recognized that. And the reason that ult is actually so good is because even if they didn't die to it, it's gonna force them out of back sight and out into the open. And as that happens, Nats is coming rafters, and he'll be able to fight that enemy out in the open as they're trying to dodge the Sova ult. It's a great demonstration of communicating your win condition to your teammates, and it couldn't have been played any better. Next up, we have Sam on Icebox. There's a couple of moments during Sam's game on Icebox that I felt were worth sharing. So let's take a look at the first one where he has an interesting ult lineup.
No.
All right, so that was a pretty cool lineup there, and we can see exactly on the mega map here what the ult is doing. It's essentially impossible to push through unless you use a ton of utility and hope that you don't die. Also, you have this really nice Killjoy alarm bot here that will go off if anyone pushes into the smoke immediately, so that way Sam can immediately react to that information and maybe get a pick or two. So if you have a Killjoy on your team on Icebox, then you might want to call for that alarm bot there. So real quick, to do this lineup, you want to back into the wall against the crate here and just line up your crosshair with this line here. And then next, you'll see that Sam actually lines up his crosshair in this little tiny gap where the container meets the garage wall here. So there's a container here, and there's this little gap, and he's just kind of aiming right in that space in line with the container. Next up, we have round 18, where a few conditions have to be met to make it work.
One flanked immediately. Oh, yep.
Hold on.
I want you to notice and pay attention to the Killjoy here. They don't actually plant against the wall. They turn away from the wall and plant towards where Sam is. So the reason for this is that if he plants against the wall, you'll notice that the jet can actually diffuse against the wall here. If you're playing by green here on this container, you won't actually be able to see the diffuser. But if you plant it out more in the open like this, now the jet has to kind of be in this position and they can still see the jet from this area. If you're planting against the wall here on nest, you pretty much exclusively have to be playing post plant from yellow. And if you're all grouped out yellow to try to kill the diffuser, it's gonna be really difficult for you to win that fight potentially.
And a toxin's coming up.
Bomb is molly.
One enemy remaining.
You're right.
Who's last, no?
Screen down.
Drop.
So Sam is kind of winging this one as well, but he's kind of aiming at this kind of white horizontal outline of the wall there. You just also have to make sure that you're running forward as well so that the molly travels as far as it needs to. So the important takeaway here is that even if you don't have a sage wall or a harbor cove and you don't have exactly the right meta utility for this map, you can still make it work given you have the right utility like a Yoru ult or just something that can give you the win condition to win the round. So we're finally back to Nats. I know you've been waiting this whole video for him to come back, but we have a pretty unique setup from here that I haven't actually seen Nats use before. And that's this wall that comes across from Waterfall, cuts off B main here, and actually goes right in front of A lobby. And the other interesting one is this orb that he throws towards the back of site here. And we'll go over what that one means in a bit, but let's first talk about this wall. Whenever you start at A, there's this big fight that happens for A main control, and whoever kind of takes that space first is going to have a bigger advantage in the rest of the round. If you wall here, the enemies will have to kind of scale through that wall and fight you while the defenders are just throwing a bunch of utility down this way. And if you're vulnerable coming through that wall and you get hit with utility, you're going to take double damage and you're going to die. The only downside I could see with this wall is that if you want to get the vulnerable effect on the attackers coming through, you're probably not going to be able to vulnerable all of them. And you might only vulnerable maybe the last 2 or the last 3 that come through. If you didn't know this, when you Viper wall, it actually rises from the point that where you threw it all the way till the end. So this point of the wall here will actually go up first before this point of the wall because it kind of cascades in and then slowly ramps up like that. So by the time this part of the wall goes up, you might have 1 or 2 of the attackers already pushed through it before it even vulnerables them. But regardless, it's a good idea for the wall as long as your teammates at A are willing to fight for A main control. So now let's talk about this orb on C. So the first good use of this wall is that it actually allows the Cypher to potentially get out and back into halls here when the enemy is pushing through aggressively into C. The other good use of this orb is that it makes retaking C a lot easier because you can kind of route in this way, fight water, and then maybe even go into the smoke and fight anyone in smoke because no one's really going to probably sit inside of the poison orb since you decay. So you can actually get into the smoke and make some plays that way. The other great thing about this orb is that if you are walking up on this elevated area and you're looking into sight, the orb will actually block your view from these attackers coming through this way. So you have all of these different angles that they can peek you from on sight or back here or from this area. So there's a lot of angles that you have to deal with when retaking. So this orb essentially eliminates a bunch of those angles. So let's go and see how Nats actually utilizes this orb to his advantage.
Come and see. Poison orb emitting.
You can actually see right there, the Cypher did die, but Nats put up the poison orb in an attempt to help the Cypher get out of sight safely.
Poison's off.
Planting.
Spike planted.
Emitting. Poison's off.
One enemy remaining.
He's gonna be main. Yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna smoke him.
Left side.
Poison orb emitting.
Nice. Look like this.
All right, so there you go. You see Nats played in the orb there, and there's this actually really sneaky spot on the left side here where you can jump up on this ledge and then drop down and still be inside the smoke because it kind of bleeds over the edge there. And the good thing about this is that he can just look at his mini map. So what he does here is that he jumps up on top and then jumps down and helps fight with his Killjoy. So now that they know the last player, the Killjoy, is playing in main, he knows that this is a perfect opportunity to grab his poison orb and put it in main to make it impossible impossible for the Killjoy to win. And all they have to do is just, you know, hold the orb or maybe just go defuse and they win the round. That just goes to show you how versatile that poison orb can be in the retake.
Yeah, I might actually throw a clone with you guys, hold, and then lurk.
Scanning ahead.
Poison orb emitting.
Three, open door. Open door.
Reloading.
That door.
Stealing sight.
Poison's off.
So finally, we have one more clip from Sam on Breeze, and this is a great example of coming up with a really solid eco strat. Eco strats are a little bit more challenging on attack on Breeze, simply because it's a lot of long range fights, and on ecos, you typically have a lot of close range weapons, unless you're using a Marshal, for example. But since all of them are not using Marshals, they need to come up with a plan to kind of make the map smaller. What this is doing is essentially shrinking the map and allowing the eco strat to kind of give you an advantage in a disadvantageous circumstance. All right, so to get this orb lineup to work, all you really need to do is come into this kind of metal plate here where this nut is, crouch until you're kind of right over it, and then you're going to want to look up at this wall where the horizontal beam is and where this furthest left piece of metal is as well. You want to aim a little bit to the right, of this piece of metal, and all you're going to want to do is run forward until your crosshair dips below this line, kind of right here. So aim a little bit to the right of this bar here, right in the middle, run, jump throw.
Poison orb emitting.
That orb lineup might take you a few tries to get right, so I would definitely practice it in a custom first, as sometimes it can kind of hit the ceiling if it's not lined up right. So you also notice that the Sova here has already darted for them on site, and he didn't see anyone, but he's also going to drone now just to kind of help them take sight from main.
Two side, one cleavage, one duck side.
Screen down.
Minute. Mid-side.
Leave us.
All three, oh my god, I'm going B, I'm running B.
If you want to throw this molly that Sam uses actually to get a kill, just kind of run off of this platform forward. There's a bunch of these panels on the far wall here that you can kind of see here, and you're just aiming at the furthest one to the right. And when that happens, you're just going to bank off here and kind of land default, nice and easy.
Double fight.
Last player standing.
So unfortunately, they lose a round, but it was a great attempt at an eco, and it could have worked if some of those trades didn't come out initially. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see from me in the future. Subscribe for more guides like this one, and check out this one next for more. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.